Welcome to this deep dive into Anthropic's May 2026 model evolution, 2 tiers of intelligence. In this presentation, we will compare Claude Opus 4.8 and Mythos Preview, 2 fundamentally different classes of AI models that represent a bold new direction for Anthropic. This is not just a product release, it is a philosophical shift in how frontier AI systems are designed, deployed, and governed. By the end of this tutorial, you will understand the architectural rationale, the safety implications, the enterprise capabilities, and the economic model behind each tier. Let's get started. The first major concept to understand is what Anthropic calls bifurcating the AI frontier. Historically, AI labs have followed a single model release cadence, one flagship model at a time, designed to do everything. Anthropic has fundamentally changed this approach. As of May 2026, the strategy is to deploy 2 distinct classes of intelligence simultaneously. Think of it as a deliberate fork in the road. On one path, Claude Opus 4.8, the accessible enterprise workhorse, widely available, optimized for reliability, and designed for broad organizational deployment. On the other path, Mythos Preview, the restricted frontier, an extreme capability system available only to a tightly controlled set of trusted organizations under a program called Project Glasswing. Rather than forcing a single model to serve every use case, from basic document summarization to high-stakes national cybersecurity, Anthropic has split the frontier itself. This is a landmark strategic decision. It acknowledges that peak capability and broad accessibility are, at this stage, fundamentally in tension. Let's look at the feature comparison between the 2 tiers side by side. Starting with Claude Opus 4.8. It represents a modest but tangible improvement over its predecessor, Opus 4.7. It maximizes efficiency within the current generation of architecture. It demonstrates substantially lower misaligned behavior and reaches new highs in prosocial traits, meaning it is more honest, more cooperative, and more aligned with human values. In terms of what it can do, Opus 4.8 handles broad enterprise-scale tasks, agentic workflows, end-to-end autonomous coding, and even substantive legal work. It was made available everywhere globally starting May 28, 2026, and it uses what Anthropic describes as standard, highly reliable enterprise security deployment. Now, Mythos Preview is a completely different story. It represents a significant leap into an entirely new class of intelligence. It is Anthropic's absolute safest and best-aligned model standard. Paradoxically, the most capable model is also the most rigorously aligned. Its primary application focus is high-stakes, extreme complexity cybersecurity, and it is, for now, a heavily restricted preview available to only a small number of organizations. Why is Mythos restricted? Because it requires extreme, next-generation cyber safeguards before it can responsibly be made available to the general public. The slide titled Scaling the Capability Ceiling captures the evolutionary relationship between 3 models, Opus 4.7, Opus 4.8, and Mythos Preview. Think of Opus 4.7 as the baseline, a strong, capable model that set a high bar. Opus 4.8 takes a step up from that, a modest but tangible evolution. Anthropic describes this as the optimization of existing architectures, pushing the limits of current reliability. It refines what we know works, but Mythos Preview takes a vertical leap. Not an incremental step, but a paradigm shift. Mythos class models shatter the capability ceiling entirely, entering an intelligence tier that fundamentally changes what AI can compute. This distinction is philosophically important. Opus 4.8 is an optimization. Mythos is an emergence. These are different categories of advancement, and treating them as such, with different access controls, safety frameworks, and use case designations, is the entire premise of this dual-tier strategy. For developers and enterprises, this means the 2 models are not really competing with each other. They serve categorically different needs. One of the most striking charts in this entire presentation is titled Divergent Capability, Convergent Alignment. The horizontal axis represents time and generations. The vertical axis on the left represents capability scale. On the right, you see misaligned behavior rates, where lower is better. What this chart shows is that Mythos Preview climbs to dramatically higher capability levels than Opus 4.8. The capability gap is enormous, but, and this is the key insight, both models converge at the same misalignment rate. The annotation says, identical safety DNA. Despite the vast capability gap, Opus 4.8 operates with the same next-generation safety rails as Mythos Preview. The chart also highlights a specific metric, Opus 4.8 is 4 times less likely to allow unremarked code flaws than its predecessor. When Opus 4.8 writes code containing a flaw, the model is now far more likely to flag that flaw rather than silently deliver broken output. This is safety scaling in action. As intelligence increases, safety investment increases proportionally, rather than lagging behind capability, as has historically been the industry concern. Let us zoom into Opus 4.8 specific enterprise capabilities, framed around 4 key domains. The first is substantive legal work. Opus 4.8 is described as the first model to break the 10% threshold on the all-pass standard of the legal agent benchmark. This is significant because legal work requires precise reasoning, contextual understanding, and the ability to handle complex multi-step arguments. The second domain is autonomous coding. Opus 4.8 achieves 100% end-to-end completion on the superagent benchmark. Importantly, it does this while beating GPT 5.5 at cost parity, meaning you do not have to pay more to get better coding performance. The third domain is browser agenting. The model scores 84% on Online Mind 2 Web, a benchmark designed to test unattended browser automation. This is a meaningful jump for workflows that require the AI to independently navigate the web, fill out forms, extract data, and take actions without human supervision. The fourth domain is data workflows. Opus 4.8 can reason directly over PDFs and unstructured data at a 61% lower token cost than Opus 4.7. When accessed through Databricks Genie, that cost reduction alone is a compelling enterprise argument. Perhaps the most technically exciting new feature in Opus 4.8 is dynamic workflows, currently available in research preview. Traditional AI-assisted coding and problem-solving is sequential. The model works through a problem step by step, one action at a time. This is slow for large-scale tasks. Dynamic workflows changes this fundamentally. Instead of sequential problem-solving, Claude can now plan massive tasks, then deploy hundreds of parallel subagents within a single session, and rigorously verify outputs before merging them. The diagram shows exactly how this works. A kickoff instruction is issued via Claude Code, and then the system fans out into hundreds of simultaneous parallel subagents. Each agent works independently on its assigned subtask. The results pass through a verification filter, and validated outputs are merged into a final unified outcome. The real-world impact is staggering. The presentation cites the ability to execute code-based scale migrations across hundreds of thousands of lines of code, from kickoff to merge, using an existing test suite as the success bar. What might take a human engineering team weeks can now be orchestrated in a single AI session. This is agentic AI at genuine enterprise scale. Accompanying dynamic workflows is another powerful new feature called the cognitive gearbox, or more formally, compute allocation control. This users. There are 3 settings on a slider. At the low end, speed and preserved rate limits. The model responds quickly, using fewer tokens and lower computational effort. Ideal for simple tasks where latency matters more than depth. In the middle, high, which is the default. This is the optimal balance of quality and experience, the setting most users will stay on for everyday work. At the maximum, extra, also called X-high, this mode forces the model to spend exponentially more tokens thinking deeper and more frequently. The result is much richer, more careful reasoning, ideal for long-running, difficult asynchronous workflows where you want the AI to be methodical and thorough. Think of it like controlling how hard the engine runs. For a quick email draft, you cruise at low effort. For a complex code-based refactor or a legal brief, you floor it at X-high. This gives enterprise users explicit economic and performance control over their AI compute spend. One of the defining behavioral changes in Opus 4.8 is what the presentation calls the honesty filter, a fundamental operational shift toward radical honesty. Earlier models, including Opus 4.7, were prone to confidently stating things, even when those things were uncertain or incorrect. They would sometimes hallucinate progress on tasks, present unsupported claims with authority, or fail to flag logic flaws in their own outputs. Opus 4.8 changes this. Instead of confidently jumping to conclusions, the model is designed to proactively flag issues with both its inputs and its outputs. It surfaces unsupported claims. It explicitly flags uncertainties. And critically, it identifies logic flaws in its own reasoning rather than presenting polished but broken answers. The quantitative callout is powerful. Opus 4.8 is 4 times less likely than its predecessor to allow flaws in its own written code to pass unremarked. In practical terms, when Opus 4.8 makes a mistake, or when the task you have given it has an ambiguity, it will tell you. That is a massive reliability improvement for enterprise workflows, where silent errors can cascade into costly downstream failures. The honesty filter is not just a safety feature, it is a trust feature. And in enterprise AI, trust is everything. Let's now turn to Mythos preview and its governing framework, Project Glasswing. Mythos represents Anthropic's absolute frontier. Not just the best model available today, but potentially the most capable AI system that has ever existed for commercial use. Because of its extreme capability leap, Anthropic has decided that Mythos cannot go through standard deployment channels. A model this powerful, if misused or if it surfaces unexpected capabilities in uncontrolled environments, could pose risks that standard enterprise security cannot contain. Instead, Mythos preview is restricted entirely to a tightly controlled initiative known as Project Glasswing. Access is limited to a very small number of elite organizations. The singular, laser-focused application is applying next-generation intelligence to high-stakes cybersecurity workflows. Why cybersecurity? Because this is a domain where extreme intelligence provides the highest leverage for good. Detecting novel attack vectors, understanding adversarial AI, protecting critical infrastructure, while also being a domain where Anthropic can maintain the tightest control over outputs and usage. Project Glasswing is not a beta program. It is not a waitlist. It is a curated, invitation-only research initiative with direct oversight from Anthropic. The safeguard seesaw slide articulates the core philosophical principle behind why Mythos is restricted. The delay in its general release is not a technical limitation, it is a requirement imposed by the model's own power. Imagine a seesaw. On the left, extreme intelligence and capability leap, the enormous weight of what Mythos can do. On the right, unprecedented cyber safeguards, the systemic protections required to responsibly contain that power. Anthropic's mandate is clear. As the intelligence tier moves exponentially upward, the weight of required systemic cyber safeguards must rise to match it before public deployment can happen. This sets Anthropic apart from competitors who prioritize speed to market over safety margin. The argument is not that Mythos is not ready, it is that the world's infrastructure is not yet ready for Mythos. The safeguards being developed are not just terms of service agreements or usage monitoring. They are next-generation systemic protections, new categories of security architecture that do not yet exist at scale and must be built and validated before the model reaches the general public. This is responsible AI development operating at its most demanding level. Let's talk about the deployment timeline and economics for both models. Opus 4.8 launched globally on May 28, 2026. It is available now, everywhere. The pricing structure is straightforward. Standard pricing remains unchanged from Opus 4.7 at $5 per million input tokens and $25 per million output tokens. There is also a fast mode, which operates at 2.5 times normal speed, now priced at $10 per million input and $50 per million output. This represents a 3 times cost reduction for fast mode compared to previous pricing, making high-throughput enterprise use cases significantly more economical. For Mythos preview, the timeline is more uncertain. This slide describes it as coming in the coming weeks, but strictly pending the final deployment of mandated cyber safeguards. There is no fixed date. The release depends on safety validation milestones, not calendar schedules. When Mythos does become generally available, it will roll out to all general customers. But that moment is gated entirely on the safeguard infrastructure being certified and deployed. The economics of Mythos have not been publicly disclosed at this stage, given that access is currently restricted to Project Glasswing participants. The final slide brings everything together with a strategic call to action. Build today, prepare for tomorrow. For organizations operating right now, the message is clear. Build with Opus 4.8 today. It is the definitive model for broad, reliable, highly aligned, autonomous enterprise tasks. Deploy dynamic workflows and effort control to automate complex systems with unprecedented reliability and cost efficiency. This is the model you should be integrating into your pipelines, legal workflows, coding environments, and day-to-day infrastructure immediately. But simultaneously, start preparing your infrastructure for Mythos. The horizon, as the slide states, is weeks away. Organizations should begin outlining their most ambitious, paradigm-shifting, extreme capability use cases right now. Design the architecture, understand the access requirements, map your highest-stakes problems, so that when the cyber safeguards are cleared and Mythos becomes available, you are ready to execute on day one. This dual posture, executing today on Opus 4.8 while designing for Mythos, is the competitive advantage for forward-thinking enterprises. To summarize everything we have covered, Anthropic has made a historic decision to bifurcate the AI frontier. Opus 4.8 is the accessible, safe, enterprise-proven workhorse for broad deployment. Mythos Preview is the restricted frontier, a new class of intelligence that will fundamentally change what is possible once the world is ready for it. 2 tiers, 1 future. The age of dual-track AI strategy has begun. Thank you for watching.